Last week we went over the terrible Indianapolis Colts and how they matched up with the Texans, and yeah, the Colts are a train wreck. Now we're moving on to the Titans. Now the Titans last year they went 9-7, surprisingly, and they fired their coach Mike Mularkey. They hired a new coach, Mike Vrabel, who I think is a total downgrade, but that's yet to be seen. Anyways, let's get into these matchups. Let's start off with the Titans rushing attack versus the Texans run defense. So the Titans offensive line is pretty damn good. The tackles, they're arguably the best tackle tandem in the league. The only other team you could really make an argument for is the Eagles with Lane Johnson and Jason Peters, but the Titans are definitely top two when it comes to offensive tackles. Interior offensive line, not as good as they were in 2016, 2017. They kind of took a step back. So I guess you could say the interior offensive line of the Titans is average, or maybe even above average. Then the Titans got rid of DeMarco Murray, who I think was terrible. I think them getting rid of DeMarco Murray was a good move for them because DeMarco Murray was old and washed up, and last season Derrick Henry looked way better and should have played over DeMarco Murray. So now they kinda handed over the keys to Derrick Henry. And I say kinda because they also got Dion Lewis, but I expect Dion Lewis to be more of a third down back type of guy because Derrick Henry does have some pass blocking issues and he's not that good of a receiver. So Dion Lewis will probably be the receiving back on third downs, third and long situations. So their rushing attack I do think will be improved from last year because, again, DeMarco Murray, I think he should have been gone, or I think he should have been benched. I think Henry is better. I mean, there's a reason DeMarco Murray is still a free agent, so the run game will be improved. Now, last year the Texans had a pretty good run defense. That was probably like the only thing that the Texans had last year that didn't go down the drain and people started getting hurt. And now the Texans get Watt and Merciless and Reader and Christian Covington back, so our run defense should be pretty damn good. And of course there's rumors out there that Benardrick McKinney is back to his normal weight, so he's no longer 270 pounds, so he should be at like 250, 245 around there. Those are just rumors though, do not know they're true, but the Texans run defense should be really good. So I see this matchup being pretty even, but it kind of does favor the Texans for one simple reason: numbers. There's 7 people in the front 7, and there's 5 offensive linemen, and then you add in the tight end, so 6 guys can't really block 7 guys. So unless you bring in some other guys, but in that situation you just have, safeties come down and whatever and all that stuff. So I do think there's an even matchup. I don't see the Titans being able to run all over the Texans, but I also don't see the Texans being capable of completely shutting down the Titans' run game. So I do see the Titans averaging between both games probably like around 80 yards rushing throughout both of the games. So there's a pretty even matchup. Now the Titans' passing attack versus the Texans' pass defense. Again, we'll start up front. The Titans' O-line is good. The Texans' pass rush is good. You got Watt, you got Clowney, you got Merciless, you got Covington, and then you got Duke Ejiofor, who just added in the draft. You got Brendan Scarlett, who should take some steps forward entering his 3rd year. Now, early on in the game, I see it again being an early matchup. You might see Clowney beat Taylor Lewan for a sack, but then you also might see Taylor Lewan hold his ground the very next play. It's going to be an even matchup between the pass rush and the Titans O-line until it hits the 4th quarter, when people start getting tired, players start getting tired. You throw in the situational pass rushers, and a tired player is not really going to perform as well as he did earlier in the game. So I might lean this matchup a little bit more to the Texans' favor just because of fresh legs, I guess you could say. You can sub people out and in. And then when you get into the secondary and the receivers, the Titans don't really have any receivers besides Delaney Walker that is really seen as a threat. Corey Davis, he's a complete question mark. Matthews is average at best. So even though the Texans have a really weak secondary, well, corners, they have weak corners. The only good one is Aaron Colvin. The Titans don't have the passing offense to expose these Texans corners. So, in conclusion, Titans offense versus the Texans defense, the Texans have a slight edge because they have what it takes to completely shut down their passing attack, even though the Texans secondary or corners aren't really where I'd like them to be. Now, the Texans run offense versus the Titans run defense. Last year the Titans had one of the better run defenses in the league. This year I could probably see the same thing. Now the Texans offensive line did improve, so there's that. But now when we talk about our offensive line versus their front seven, the Titans did get Harold Landry and a new linebacker in the first round from Alabama. Now when you look at the matchups, our offensive line versus their run defense, or our rushing attack versus their run defense, it's kind of similar to the other side. Well, Lamar Miller, he's decent. I don't know when Deontay Foreman will be back. I do think Deontay Foreman has a way bigger upside than Lamar. But, again, I can see this being an even matchup. Our offensive line isn't all that good by any means. Interior-wise, they're pretty good. I guess you could say our offensive line is the opposite of the Titans' offensive line. Our offensive line from the interior should be above average, while our tackles are complete question marks. So I could see Brian Arakpo, Derek Morgan, Harold Landry kind of containing the outside runs, but I can also see us being able to run down the middle, but only to a certain extent before we meet up with the linebackers. So I guess this matchup is pretty even, but if Bill O'Brien doesn't utilize Lamar Miller properly, then I'll give this matchup to the Titans. Now, the Texans passing attack versus the Titans passing defense. Pass rush wise, the Titans have Brian Arakpo, Derek Morgan, and a newly acquired Harold Landry. I think, regardless of the situation, our tackles are complete question marks. I think Derek Morgan, Brian Arakpo, Harold Landry can have a field day with our tackles, because our tackles are complete question marks. Right now, our tackles are pretty much wish and hope that they turn out good. So I can totally see the Titans being able to get pressure on Deshaun Watson inside. I don't see Jarrell Casey being able to do much like last year, where he was able to get pressure like every single play on Xavier Su'a-Filo. This year, I don't really see that being able to happen. So, pass rush wise, I'll give the edge to the Titans. But now when you talk about the receivers versus their DBs, the Texans completely blow the Titans out of the water when it comes to this. The Titans have one of the most overrated secondaries in the league. You look at their corners. They have, at their number one spot, Malcolm Butler. Malcolm Butler was one of the worst corners last year. Malcolm Butler was playing as a number 2 corner last year. Now, was it a down year? Because Malcolm Butler, the 2 years prior to this past year, he was pretty decent at the one spot. But last year, he was just terrible. Can Malcolm Butler bounce back? That's yet to be seen. But as of right now, I'm not liking Malcolm Butler. At the 2 spot, you got Adoree Jackson. In my opinion, Adoree Jackson does not belong there. Adoree Jackson should be the nickel corner. And their nickel corner is Logan Ryan, who I think should be their number 2 corner, because Logan Ryan just, I don't think, has the skill set to be a nickel corner. He'll get burned by anyone. So pretty much you got Malcolm Butler covering DeAndre Hopkins. How's that going to work out? Hopkins is probably going to win every single matchup. You got Adoree Jackson covering Will Fuller on the other side. And Adoree Jackson can't cover Will Fuller. Will Fuller has burned Adoree Jackson multiple times in college. I'm pretty sure he did it last year too, when we played. And then you got Logan Ryan on Kiki Coty or Bruce Ellington. And I just don't see that working out for the Titans. So the Texans can easily expose the Titans secondary. I think the Titans have one of the most overrated secondaries in the league. The only player I'm comfortable with from their secondary is Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard is a beast. But Adoree Jackson, if he would be used properly in the nickel, I think he could also excel there. But I think they're going to play him outside. I'm not too sure though. So Logan Ryan and Malcolm Butler are pretty much my 2 biggest issues in their secondary. I think they are completely overrated players. As far as tight ends go, the Texans, a bunch of question marks at tight end, so I guess the Titans have the edge there. But, I mean, a tight end is not going to win your league. Well, he could win you a game, but he's not really going to lose you a game if you don't have a good tight end. So, I do give the edge to the Texans offense in this matchup. So, in conclusion, I 100% believe that the Texans will sweep the Titans. The Texans just have a better roster. If you look at everything, the Titans don't really have star players besides maybe Kevin Byard, who's really more of an up-and-coming star rather than just a star. The Titans don't have star players. They just have a lot of average to above average players. I mean, you could count Taylor Lewan, but I mean, who really counts an offensive lineman as a star anywhere in the league? Offensive linemen get no respect. Anyways, that's all I really have for you guys today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.